You tell yourself, maybe if I explain one more time, if I just show him how much I care, if I stay calm, stay soft, stay patient. But love doesn't grow in a place where only one person is watering the soil. From a psychological lens, this isn't just about him, it's about the quiet war within you, the part of you that clings hoping while another part knows this isn't what love is supposed to feel like, that knowing is painful, and yet it's the first step toward healing. So ask yourself, who are you when you stop performing for the love you're not receiving? When your tenderness is met with distance, your instincts may tell you to do more, but wisdom asks you to pause and see more clearly, because disinterest is not an invitation to work harder. It is a signal, one that says, you deserve to walk where you are wanted. The man's silence is not always a mystery. Sometimes it's an answer with no words at all. Let's talk honestly. When a man is not interested in you, it rarely shows up in the way you hope to recognize it. It's not always cruelty or conflict or even neglect. Often it's quiet, polite, ambiguous. It's unanswered texts, vague plans, distracted eyes when you speak. And if you're deeply emotionally invested, it can feel maddeningly unclear. But in the science of relationships, we know that the absence of active connection is a form of communication. It speaks volumes, and more importantly, it gives you information to reclaim your clarity. One of the first patterns we see in relationships drifting apart is what I call missed bids for connection. These are small moments when you reach out, not always with grand declarations of love, but with simple things, a shared joke, a story from your day, a touch, a glance. When a man consistently turns away from or ignores those bids, even subtly, what he's showing is that he's emotionally checked out, not necessarily out of cruelty, but out of detachment. And this creates a deep emotional injury for you. Being ignored doesn't just hurt, it neurologically registers as a threat to your sense of attachment security. This is why you feel anxious, why you keep trying harder, why you may even begin to doubt your worth. You're not needy, you're reaching out for reassurance in a system that no longer offers it. Now let's talk about emotional flooding. This happens when you feel overwhelmed by silence, by coldness, by feeling unseen, and your body enters survival mode. You start over-explaining, over-functioning, maybe even emotional chasing. But here's the truth. When someone is emotionally unavailable, your increase in intensity will not bring them closer. That leads us to the Four Horsemen, the behaviors that predict the end of a relationship. One in particular, stonewalling, is key here. When a man consistently withdraws, avoids, shuts down emotionally, that's stonewalling. It's not just him needing space, it's him protecting himself from engagement. He no longer feels invested, and the more you pursue, the more he detaches. You're in a reactive loop. Here sets your second aha. If you're the only one fighting for the relationship, you're not in a relationship, you're in emotional labor. But there is a way forward, and it starts with reframing a pattern many fall into, believing that your love can fix his detachment. Let's try a healing loop together. Insight, what you're actually doing is trying to regulate his nervous system instead of your own. This is where your silence becomes a boundary, not a wound. When used consciously, stepping back from the emotional chase allows your nervous system to reset. It invites you to rebuild your love map, not with fantasies of who you wish he'd be, but with grounded clarity about who he truly is. It also brings your dignity back into the room, not in anger, but in calm truth. Remember, it's not weak to walk away when someone is uninterested. It's wise. Because love is not proven through how much pain you can endure. It's revealed in how deeply two people are willing to show up emotionally again and again. So if your bids are constantly unanswered, If stonewalling is met with silence, if your efforts bring exhaustion rather than intimacy, it may not be that you're not enough. It may be that you're in the wrong story, and you're allowed to write a new one. Her name was Maya, late 30s, sharp, self-aware, well-loved by her friends. The kind of woman who knew how to hold space for others, empathetic, generous with her heart. But when it came to love, she often found herself doing all the emotional heavy lifting. This time it was Daniel. He was charming in that quiet, reflective way, responsive, just enough to keep hope alive, vague enough to keep her guessing. At first it was exciting, then confusing, then exhausting. It started with small things. She'd send a message in the evening, "Hope your meeting went well," and hours would pass. No reply. Then a dry, "Yeah, it was fine." The next morning, no warmth, no return question. Still, she rationalized, "He's busy. He's not a words person. He shows it differently." So she filled the gaps. She'd send follow-ups, soften her tone, sprinkle light humor to make it easier for him to respond. She became the emotional engine of a two-person connection. She initiated every plan, asked every question, carried every silence like it was a puzzle she could solve if she just cared enough. One night they were on the phone, or rather she was on the phone, talking about a small success at work, something she was proud of. And somewhere mid-sentence, she noticed the pause on the other end. The silence wasn't just quiet. It was absent. She stopped. "Are you still there?" she asked. He exhaled. Yeah. I'm just tired." She smiled through it, said, "Of course," and finished the story anyway, even though she knew he wasn't listening. Afterward, she sat on her couch in the dark. The room glowed with the soft blue light from her phone. She opened a new message to him. "I feel like I'm the only one trying. Can we talk about this?" Her thumbs hovered over send. She stared at it. Then something inside her paused, like a whisper inside her chest. "Why are you trying to explain yourself into being loved?" She didn't send the message. She deleted it. Then she did something she hadn't done in months. She turned her phone face down and sat in the stillness without reaching, without fixing, without performing. That moment, though quiet, was tectonic. She remembered a line from therapy: "Overfunctioning in relationships is often how we abandon ourselves." And suddenly, she saw it, not just him, but herself. The woman in the mirror who had confused emotional labor for love. The one who had been trying to prove she was worthy of something that was never being offered. She didn't confront him after that. She didn't beg for clarity. There was no final conversation, just slow, intentional distance. And with each quiet day that followed, she felt less like she was losing something and more like she was finally returning to herself. Because sometimes the most loving thing you can do isn't to hold on, it's to stop explaining your worth to someone who never learned how to see it. And that steps when she realized, he didn't change. I did. And that's how I knew it was time to walk away. When a man is no longer emotionally invested, the signs aren't always loud. They are often subtle misbids for connection, diminishing curiosity, a quiet erosion of shared rituals. Over time, this creates confusion, exhaustion, and self-doubt in the partner who's still trying. That emotional labor, especially when unreciprocated, creates an invisible weight that women often carry alone. But we don't need to guess our way to peace. In over 4 decades of research with thousands of couples, we've learned that clarity and self-regulation are not abstract ideas. They are built through small, repeatable tools. Tools that restore your internal sense of dignity, whether the relationship continues or not. Let me share a few with you today. Try this tonight, the 60-second pause before reacting. When you feel the sting of a cold reply, an ignored message, or that familiar pang of emotional distance, pause, not to suppress the feeling, but to observe it. This micro-intervention gives your nervous system space to self-regulate, which is essential when the relationship dynamic begins triggering emotional flooding. Instead of reacting impulsively with another text, another explanation, or internal blame, say quietly to yourself, I am noticing the urge to reach, what do I need right now? The second tool is something I consider sacred. Name it to tame it. When your mind spirals, does he care? Am I imagining this? Should I try harder? Your body is in a state of low-grade anxiety. Labeling your emotion activates the prefrontal cortex and soothes the amygdala. So instead of just feeling rejected, you tell yourself, this is sadness. This is fear of being unchosen. This is loneliness. It sounds simple, but it's profound, because the moment you give language to your internal experience, you reconnect with agency. You stop becoming a reaction to someone else's indifference and start becoming a witness to your own needs. Next is a ritual rooted in reflective accountability. Journal prompt, what did I give today that I didn't receive in return? This is not about scorekeeping. It's about awareness. Did you offer presence, emotional labor, attention, affection without reciprocation? If that imbalance is consistent, the journal becomes a mirror. Over time, you'll begin to see what parts of you are being depleted, and that awareness becomes a compass, one that points you back to relationships built on mutuality, not martyrdom. In our studies, we've found that stable, emotionally healthy relationships maintain a 5-1 ratio of positive to negative interactions. But when you're in an unbalanced connection, especially one where your needs are dismissed, you may start developing an internal narrative full of self-blame or emotional scarcity. So when you experience a trigger, say, he cancels plans again, catch the self-judgment, then counter it internally with 3 truths. It's not weak to want consistency. My needs are valid even if he can meet them. This behavior reflects his capacity, not my worth. This isn't toxic positivity. It's repair from the inside out. The truth is, leaving a relationship where someone is emotionally unavailable isn't just about walking away. It's about reclaiming your inner world, the way you speak to yourself, soothe yourself, and stand by yourself. When you practice these tools, you begin to transform pain into power, not because you got the closure you wanted, but because you gave it to yourself. There's a specific kind of ache that doesn't scream, it lingers. It's when you're in a relationship where you still show up, still try, still hope, but he doesn't meet you there. He responds when he feels like it.
His words are clipped.
He used to ask about your day. Now he barely notices when you're quiet. And even though no one's yelling, even though there's no dramatic ending, you feel it. That slow, heavy disappearance of care. And yet you stay. You explain. You overthink. You try to earn what should be given freely. Not because you're weak, but because your heart is wired for connection, and you're afraid that letting go means failure. But I want to tell you something that may land hard and soft at the same time. Detachment isn't set abandonment. It's not giving up on love. It's stepping away from a version of it that keeps wounding you. There's a reason your body feels tired. Your mind is doing the emotional labor of 2 people. Every unanswered message, every cold conversation, every plan you make to keep it alive, is adding weight to your heart, not because you're too much, but because you've been carrying it alone. The shifts where we pause, and this is your goosebump moment, if you're ready to hear it. The moment you stop chasing someone's inconsistent attention is the moment you begin receiving your own steady love. So many women have worked with have said, but I just want him to see me. And I always ask, do you see you? Do you see the way you see the stayed, the way you see the reached out, tried again, made excuses, softened your voice, waited hours to protect his comfort over your clarity? But here sets the mirror truth, and I want you to hold it gently. What if you weren't set too much, just unprotected? What if your tenderness, your longing, your desire to feel close weren't flaws, but unguarded gifts you kept offering to someone who didn't know how to receive them? You don't need to shrink. You don't need to silence your needs to keep the peace. You don't need to become smaller to be loved. You just need to offer that same devotion inward. From now on, I will not confuse emotional neglect with mystery. I will not confuse silence with safety, and I will not chase what cannot meet me, because walking away isn't weakness, it's wisdom. It's the moment you stop waiting for someone else to name your worth and start living like you already know it. Earlier, we spoke about a quiet kind of pain, the kind that hides inside unanswered messages, lukewarm conversations, and the long pause after you've said something vulnerable and heard nothing back. Most people think love ends in loud arguments, but now you know the deeper truth that often fades in silence. Yet here sits what I want you to remember as you walk out of this moment, maybe a little more awake than before. That silence, it's no longer a mystery to solve or a puzzle to earn your way through. It's a mirror, a sacred one, not of your unworthiness, but of your arrival. You've reached the place where chasing becomes choosing, where trying harder becomes letting go with grace. You're not the woman who over-explains anymore. You're not performing for closeness. You're not waiting to be chosen. The moment you stop begging for presence is the moment you remember you were never invisible to begin with.